presents
Baleroc.
Dragons and demons, it's time for the main event in Firelands Arena. Mortal Filth versus Baleroc! By the Fire Lord's command, you too shall perish!
Baleroc earned a reputation as a merciless combatant during the elemental wars of ancient Azeroth. He stands before the gate to Sulfuran Keep.
None shall pass!
The bridge can only be crossed by those who find a way to put an end to this towering elemental monstrosity.
Well, first I'll just consult the magic scroll, huh? Thou shalt count to 3. No more, no less. 3 shall be the number thou shalt count. What the? Screw this! Come on, boys! Let's pull a Jenkins! Charge!
Baleroc! So, Baleroc is a big bad man that poops out crystals that try to kill you. That was that was the thing I was trying to get at before. Aetheric, hey, why don't you give the folks the health pool and enrage timer for Baleroc, please?
Alrighty, well, in 10-man normal, you're looking at about 42 million. 10-man heroic, it's 70 million. 25-man normal, 133 million, and 25-man heroic, 195 million. Mm-hmm. And to top all that off, there is a 6-minute enrage timer.
Yes, which is kind of that's the biggest thing about this fight. I really do think that's true.
It's a little tight.
Yeah, it is tight. Coltrane, you want to give the folks kind of a brief rundown of what happens?
Baleroc is a single-phase fight. You will not have to deal with any types of ads whatsoever. It's just the big guy himself.
Mm-hmm.
The boss will constantly increase the health of his main aggro target, which would be your tank,
right,
while also increasing his own damage dealt. Now, there's some interesting mechanics which enable your healers to have the required output to heal the tank, and the DPS will have to perform some special tasks that will enable the healers to be able to do this.
Right. And there are basically 2 categories of abilities that Baleroc has. One set of abilities causes Baleroc to do massive amounts of damage and provides the tank with sufficient health to survive it, while the other provides healers with the necessary tools that they need to be able to heal up the tanks. And let's go through that first category. Aetheric, if you could just kind of run through some of these abilities that Baleroc has to that buffs tanks and his own damage.
All right, yeah, well, to buff the tank's health, he casts Blaze of Glory every 10 seconds. And what that's going to do is increase your tank's max health by 20%,
right,
as well as their physical damage taken by 20%.
Mm-hmm.
And this can't be dispelled and does not have a duration. So basically, when the boss is active, the tanks have this.
Yep, and it stacks too.
Right.
Right.
Incendiary Soul causes back to apply Incendiary Soul to himself every time he casts Blaze of Glory, and this will increase his fire damage done by 20%.
Yep.
Inferno Blade every 60 seconds. He's going to infuse that big sword he waves around for 15 seconds and cause extra fire damage, about 100,000 damage. Mm-hmm. And this gets increased by the stacks of Incendiary Soul.
Right.
And again, every 60 seconds, he's going to do Decimation Blade, which is going to hit your tank for at least 250,000 or 90% of his health, whichever's bigger.
Higher.
Right.
Right.
While this is active, his attack speed is reduced by 50%. And we've noticed something, either he'll miss, or he'll hit you once, he'll hit you twice.
Yep.
So tank's got to be prepared to blow a cooldown there.
Yep, absolutely. And then the second category is for healers, and I'll just kind of run through this a little bit. There are, because this kind of works with DPS and everything. He does Shards of Torment, which is roughly every 30 seconds. Baleroc summons a Shard of Torment, or in 10-man, or 2 shards in 25. And They cast Torment on the player nearest to them within 15 yards. DPS needs to be within 15 yards of this thing. And it casts Torment on the player nearest them within 15 yards, which inflicts 4,000 shadow damage per second to them and stacks. The Torment debuff is undispellable as well, lasts for 2 seconds. Tormented is the debuff that's applied after that 2 seconds. Okay, it increases shadow damage taken by 250% and lasts for 40 seconds. 40 seconds in 10-man difficulty, 60 seconds in 25-man difficulty.
It's a long time.
It is a long time. You got to wait that sucker out because it will come back and bite you in the butt. There is also Wave of Torment, a raid-wide shadow damage ability caused if no player is within 15 yards of that shard. So it's essentially if nobody's near it, guess what? Everybody's going to die. It doesn't care.
It won't just be one person. It'll be the whole raid.
Right. Exactly. And then there's Vital Spark. Each time a healer heals a raid member affected by Torment, as they're standing next, as they are the nearest one to this crystal, their healer will gain a stack or several of Vital Spark. Healers gain 1 stack of Vital Spark for every 3 stacks of Torment on their target. So it's a little, you got to do a little bit of math here, but you're going to get multiple stacks as the person stands close to this crystal. So there you have it. There is also Vital Flame. When a healer with stacks of Vital Spark heals a player affected by Blaze of Glory, so the tank, their stacks of Vital Spark will be consumed and turned into Vital Flame. Vital Flame is a buff which lasts for 15 seconds and increases the player's healing done on targets affected by Blaze of Glory. So by 5% for each stack. There we go. All right. So those are the abilities of everything that's going on. And there are a couple of different strategies out there. Right, Aethric? As far as how many tanks to use and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of groups going 1 tank. We go 2 though.
Yeah, I do think that going 2 tanks is a little bit easier on the healers. Colt, do you guys go 2 tanks on this?
We do. We go 2 tanks. Solar, actually, I was speaking to him. He actually goes 1 tank. And what they do is the healers just blow all of their cooldowns and all their mana on that 1 tank, which you can do. But for us, we tried it the 1 tank way. We've now switched it to 2, and we're having a much easier time getting through the fight. So as far as I recommend 2, personally. Yeah,
me too. I really do. Especially if you have a healer like a druid who is mainly, he's your guy with hots, right? So he doesn't do a lot of actual direct healing, does a lot of, hot healing. So it's a little tougher if you have a druid in your healing group. So I would recommend 2. Let's talk basic strategy. How do you guys, Coltrane, how do you guys work the DPS rotation? Because with this crystal out and with the cooldown on the Tormented debuff, which lasts in 10-man, it's 40 seconds. You have to kind of figure it out. These shards go down every 30 seconds, right?
Right.
So it's kind of, the timing has to be like right there.
I would say the simplest answer is conga line.
Yeah.
You need to literally establish a conga line with your DPS. Right. Because it lasts so long, there's no way that one person will be able to, take one crystal, then it despawns, then another crystal comes up. It just won't be possible. So what we actually did is we assigned an order, a conga line order, where we had all of our DPS. We had like 5 guys. Now, originally we were trying it with 3. We thought, maybe we'll try it with 3 DPS. Like just 3 people are doing it, and the other 2 could just be flat out DPSing. But we realized that wasn't enough. That the timing and the way it worked out, you needed more.
Right.
More. So we tried it with 4, and we actually ended up just going with straight 5. Pretty much, I believe we had just all of our DPS was in this conga line. So what you do is you literally sit down and you establish an order. You say, okay, so-and-so, you're going to be first, and then after that person second, and then third, and then fourth, and fifth. And literally, what really, really helps is to literally start a conga line just to visually get an idea as far as what you're going to do. So we had our rogue go first. So what happens is the fight starts. About 5 seconds in, this little crystal is going to spawn. So have your first guy stands right next to the crystal. The rest of your DPS, you're going to form a line directly behind that rogue. And then what happens is he's on that shard, that little purple crystal, until a certain amount of time, and then he's going to get off that crystal and run to the back of the line, and then the next person will run straight up, and then they will now start getting the tormented debuff.
Now, do you guys wait for a specific amount of time, or do you wait for a specific amount of stacks?
We wait for a specific amount of stacks. Now, we did something a little bit differently than some of the guides that I read out there. Now, the stacks, they go in a set of 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the healers get the most benefit.
Right.
So you're looking at, as far as stacks go, 6, 9, and 12. If you go anything above 12, just forget about it. It's just not going to happen.
You're dead.
You're dead. You're dead, kid. You hear me? You're dead.
You go above 12, you're dead. Sorry.
Exactly. That's how it goes. So, because basically, as you're getting these stacks, you're taking more and more damage. So originally, we were trying it at 12.
Mm-hmm.
But then we've now we've switched now to 9. So in 9 is a lot easier, because what's going to happen is this. You're going to be standing there next to the shard, and at about stack 8 is when you want to start moving out. Because what's going to happen, and you just can't help this, you are going to accidentally get another stack. It's just going to happen at some point. So let's say we're doing a stack of 9. If you start running out at 9, right before you get out of range, I guarantee you're going to get that 10th stack. It's just going to happen.
Yep.
So and then you're just going to get a huge blast of damage. So when we were doing it at 12 stacks, when you get an extra stack at 13, you're dead. Just forget about it. So some guides say 12 stacks and then DPS needs to switch. We were doing it at 9, and just a basic rule is when you get to 8 stacks, at 8 stacks is when you want to start moving out. So by the time it switches, you will just get that 9th stack. Your healers are happy, everyone's happy, and you're right to the back of the conga line, and so on and so forth.
Yep. And what we did too, as far as for DPS goes, we make sure that the guy who's next in line is right on the outside shoulder of the guy who's soaking up this crystal damage, so that he's right there, can just take it right away and be done with it. And one of the things that I found was that when you're doing the conga line method, some people do the conga line method, some people do the 2. So some people do 2 people per crystal, which is maybe a little bit long, and it is a little bit more frustrating at times, a little bit more difficult. You can do it. I've done it. It's possible, but I don't necessarily recommend it. But if you do the conga line method, the first 2 people will get hopefully 9 or 10 stacks, and that last guy might get only a couple. And that's okay. That's all right. If you only get a couple, that's fine. You're still helping out. You're still doing your thing. So don't worry about if you're not getting enough stacks.
And the reason you're only going to get a couple is that actual crystal will despawn.
Right.
That's why you're not going to get straight up to the 9 or anything like that. It'll actually despawn. Like, you'll literally get right on the crystal, and then that thing will just despawn immediately.
Right.
However, you will now be tormented. You will have the purpley bad stuff on you. So when the new one spawns, you're done. You got to go to the back of the conga line. Mm-hmm. Don't try to get into that next crystal. Even though you only got like 1 or 2 stacks, just don't do it. You're not going to make it.
Don't do it. It's bad news. We've had stuff go awry in our group, haven't we, Aethric?
Once or twice.
Yeah, where somebody comes cruising through, maybe a tank got rezzed, or even a healer gets in the way, and both of which are no-nos, just so you know. And then it goes back to that first person, and then they end up dying because you're tormented. That's the way it works. Aethric, why don't you talk about healing duties and about how we, at least on our team, have worked it out with healing?
Well, we take turns. You usually go first, and you want to heal the tormented target up until you get about 50 stacks, and then we'll rotate healers out.
Right.
The first 2, or I should say the other 2 healers, who aren't building up their stacks at the time, are taking care of the tanks.
Right.
And then, like I said, we'll switch out when the first healer gets to 50 stacks, then he'll go to healing the tanks, and we'll put the next guy up to start building his stacks up.
Yep. And these are stacks of Vital Spark, if you need that reference. So we're trying to build up our Vital Spark stacks to about 50, and then we rotate our healers. And generally speaking, if you're using the conga line method, then that is going to be roughly 3 crystals, which is kind of a long time, but it's.
Can you explain when you say rotate
manageable.
healers? What do you mean?
Well, we have 2 healers on the tanks initially, and 1 healer getting these Vital Flame stacks up. And normally it's me, only because I'm a druid, and so I need more healing power, so I want to make sure that I get that. So 1 healer is going to be on all the DPS that's going in and out of these shards, healing up, trying to get these Vital Spark stacks. 2 healers on the tanks to make sure that those guys are topped off, because of the things that he does to hurt tanks is kind of bad news, or can be. Can be anyway.
And don't forget that tank's health bar is also increasing too. So as he's taking more damage, it takes more to fill it up.
Right. So that's kind of the easy mode as far as what healers are looking for, or at least as far as our team, what we're looking for when we go through this. You might have a slightly different number of stacks that you want to get to, and you may rotate faster and you may rotate more. You may say every 2 crystals, we're switching. As long as you guys have communication and as long as you guys know what's going on, great. I'm glad that you're finding something that works for you. But you do want to make sure that you're gaining those stacks so that you can heal up the tanks as they get these big, huge damage blows to them. And let's talk about that a little bit. Aethric, we watch this from our heal bot bars and stuff. And since we're using the 2 tank method, how do we go about doing that?
Well, usually our first tank will tank Baleroc till it gets his health up to about 250,000.
Yep.
And then our bear tank will taunt off, and every once in a while, like every 60 seconds, Baleroc will cast his Decimation Blade.
Yep.
And for that, we'll have our first tank taunt off and take that Decimation Blow, and then for the rest of the fight, that's the only damage he'll take.
Right.
And so our secondary tank will taunt back off, and
yep,
you've got to fill up that 250k again.
Yep, and the goal is to have your first tank, the tank who first goes in there, get his health more than 250,000. That's the important thing, so that when Decimation Blade hits, it only hits for a max of 250,000 or 90% of his health. Kind of an interesting thing, that Decimation Blade can hit up to 3 times in 15 seconds. That means your healers have to heal 250,000 or more health points in less than 5 seconds.
Ouch.
Right.
Yeah, that's a lot of healing.
Right.
Yikes.
The good thing is that he misses a lot.
Yeah.
Right. He's big. He's got this big mask on. He can't see too well.
Yeah, he's got this big unwieldy sword that he's just kind of thrown around. So that's if your tank gets hit by Decimation Blade, have him blow a cooldown, please. Have him blow his dodge cooldown so that the next time that he swings, hopefully he's going to miss, because it's hard to heal up that much in 5 seconds.
Right. And by the 12th expansion, it'll be fine. But we're not there yet. So
right.
When we've all got 500,000 health, or actually 1 million, no big deal. But right now,
right, exactly.
Good time to use a cooldown.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the basic structure for that. So we have tanks. The first tank going in, getting over 250 health, 250k health, I should say, and then second tank taking everything except for Decimation Blade, and then first tank will taunt off. And there are a bunch of things not to do. Should we talk about those? We've kind of talked about them already. There is the one thing where healers should never be targeted by Torment. So if you're a healer, don't stand next to the shard.
Yes, it would be bad.
Right. The really bad thing is that if you get the tormented debuff, basically, you'll basically lose 50% of your healing, and that's not a good thing. I don't think anybody wants that. And the tanks, while they can take it, probably don't want to. It's not a good thing to take. You want to make sure that your DPS is doing this, because if your tanks are taking torment, it's okay. But if they're like traveling through, like we were talking before, it can be a very bad thing, because it can mess up the rotation. It can mess up your conga line. And,
Yes.
And I'm sure that you've been involved in that one, Colt, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the conga line in this fight. I mean, literally, when you get this DPS rotation down, it makes this fight so much easier just overall. What's great about Baleroc is there is zero RNG. I mean, there is as far as the decimation blade and that kind of thing. But we mentioned in an earlier episode, to compare and contrast these two with Lord Rylith, this fight in particular for DPS, Baleroc is like the greatest fight ever. Because for DPS, all you have to do is DPS and dance in the conga line. That's it.
Right.
So your job, you're full on DPSing, and then you just shift. You just move about 2 to 3 steps to get to the front of the line. After you get your tormented, you go to the back of the line, and you continue to DPS. But keep this in mind. There is a 6-minute enrage timer.
Yeah.
And that thing is tight. It really is. We've downed Baleroc several times now, but we are always pushing that enrage timer. And it's getting a little bit better with more gear, but still, there's really not that much movement. You got to make sure, DPS, that you are just, plugging away, that you are, blowing your cooldowns, you are doing your thing. We actually, Bloodlust, usually right at the top of the fight. Another thing, it helps healers get their stacks going and everything just rocking and rolling.
Yep.
But DPS, make sure you're just wailing away right at the front of this fight. And it's great. It's a wonderful fight for DPS. All we got to do is just DPS and occasionally move. It's fantastic. Love it.
This is actually, my thought is that this is actually the easiest encounter of the lower Firelands raid, maybe the entire Firelands raid, as far from a mechanic standpoint, for sure.
Yeah.
It's everything else is confusing and chaotic.
Right.
And this is really not.
It's very controlled.
To paraphrase our third healer, it's pretty much a tank and spank.
You're right. He does say that a lot. That's basically a tank and spank. That's what he said for Rylith. That's pretty much a tank and spank.
Yeah. No big deal. But it's also, at first, it seems really complicated. And even, when we're reading the description of the abilities, you're like, what the heck is going on? But once you get down the mechanics, you got the conga line going, you're good. The tanks know what they're doing. The healers know what they're doing. It literally, you can get this guy on farm easily. Right. It's just, it's once you get the idea, once you get the fight down, then it's great. It's cake.
Yep, it's not too bad, and we had some issues with this last week, and I think it's basically because some people didn't know exactly what our group did, and maybe I didn't explain it all that well. I don't know. It was kind of an off day, but you can easily put this guy into farm status, after a couple of weeks anyway. I'd say of downing
and like
him.
Albert Moose in our chat channel just said that Baleroc is hard to explain, but he makes a lot of sense. The fight makes a lot of sense once you actually do it.
That's right.
So once you get in there, it all kind of clicks and registers, and okay, all right, this is what we do.
Right.
So it's good, fun fight.
Yeah, for sure. It's an easy win once you get everything going. Oh, and just a note for healers, you want to work with direct heals, not with HOTS, okay? That's the only way that these stacks come on. The Vital Spark, that's the only way that they get on you. So if you're rolling HOTS, that's fine, but it's not going to do anything for your Vital Spark. So make sure you're using direct heals for the most part.